Right, is that one of your own that you're wearing right now?
Yeah.
That, if anyone can't quite see it, it says, all I want for Christmas is mental stability, which I think is actually, well, that's basically what we've been talking about for the last hour before you've got here. So, well, welcome on over anyway. It's good to catch up with you. So, a mutual friend of ours, Kirsty, put me in touch with you. Kirsty was actually on the podcast like 4 years ago or something. So she's a bit of a veteran over here. But yeah, she got in touch with me and she's like, oh, my friend's doing mental health and clothing and has got a bit of a dark sense of humour. And I was just like, sounds good. I'm like,
that kind of humour.
I'm like, mental health, dark humour, clothing. I like those things. So I thought, yeah, we'd get you over and have a chat. So, well, how has your festive period been going so far?
This will sound really bad. I'm glad it's over. There is so much pressure at Christmas. I'm just so glad it's now. I can enjoy this part. The after Christmas part, the presents open, this is my favourite part, the after Christmas.
Right.
Between Christmas and New Year is where I can just relax.
No, it doesn't sound bad at all. And I think for most of the people like that are listening, it's I'm trying to not like have people think that our community just sit and moan about everything. We don't moan about everything, but we're honest about everything. And like I've never had so much flack on a post that I've done ever, apart from that I put a post up just a few days ago saying that Christmas, the meaning for Christmas hasn't been lost, it's just been diversified. So now, basically, some people do it for family, some people do it for, hanging out with friends, some people do it for time alone, some people do it for religion, some people do it for charity, whatever. There was nothing negative in there. I wasn't like, oh, boo-hoo, look at us, or anything like that. And the amount of flack I basically got this across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts, the amount of grief I got for this one post saying, "Oh, everyone," and honestly, the theme was everyone's got problems, just get on with it. And but yeah, no, I personally kind of do see I do see Christmas in that way of it being all this kind of like build up and all this pressure and all these expectations. I have two, I want to say late teens now. They're technically not. One of them's in his mid-teens, but I have like two teenage boys and like a mum who's just turned 70, and it's like trying to keep. I'm a people pleaser, so I'm like trying to make like I'm happy when all of them are happy. So I'm never happy because there's never a moment that all four of them are happy at the same time. And yeah, but then this whole period now feels a little bit limbo-y to me. So because I literally talk to people online for a living, and people are offline right now, so it's kind of quiet.
Going doing their own thing.
Yeah. So the thing that interests me the most whenever like anyone does anything to do with mental health, really, whether it's like fashion, music, poetry, anything like that, is why? What's your reason behind it? What was it that made you go for this? Like,
I'd thought about it for a few years before I actually did it, but the thing that wanted me to do it really was when I started my struggle, I thought I was on my own, and I think if I knew I wasn't on my own, I might not have gone so dark down that path. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to bring mental health out in not necessarily a dark way, but in like a humorous way, just so it's not a taboo topic. People actually can talk about it and not think, oh, they struggle with depression. Oh, just want people to feel like it's a normal thing to go through. They're not different. They're not strange. They're not wrong for feeling the way they feel. So I wanted to kind of create an awareness, but in a different way.
Yeah. It's such another one of those common themes that I talked about this about 6 weeks ago or so, that I thought I was talking about how I felt in high school and how I had all these feelings that were going on and I was struggling, but on the surface I was like masking up. I was keeping it looking as if everything was all operating fine, and I was going under the assumption that even though I knew that I was feeling like crap and I knew that I was covering it up, I was going under the assumption that I was the only person and that everybody else who looked like they had it all together genuinely did. And yeah, it was another 20 or so years before I kind of figured out that actually, no, not many people had it all together. And actually the ones that do, they're the ones that you possibly need to worry about. In terms of kind of like when you know, like, so using a sort of sense of humor around it, what response have you had from that? Like, because I get it now, basically, if I make jokes about like my own mental health to people within the mental health community, it's like we all kind of laugh along, but people outside the mental health community are just like, you can't say that. And I'm like, well, actually, first of all, I think you'll find that I can say that because that's the privilege of having mental health, is the fact that I can joke about it and as much as I want to. But yeah, what was the response that you got?
It was a mixture. Some people found it funny. Some people like, oh, that's too dark. And other people were just like, oh my God, I love it. There wasn't really much else. It was either love it, too dark, or I don't get it.
Yeah. And would you say within each of those kind of groups, it was mostly people who have their own mental health concerns that are the ones that are more inclined to get it?
Yeah, the people that found it hilarious, the ones that have struggled, the ones that didn't get it, for me personally, are like my mum and dad. They don't understand mental health. So when I bring out a t-shirt that, oh, well, that's a bit morbid. Like, but it's funny. It's funny. It's not making light of mental health, but trying to make it so it's not so serious topic all the time.
Yeah.
So I found certain generations react differently as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's with every topic, I guess. What were kind of some of your really like early designs? Like, what were the kind of slogans on for some of the first ones?
The first ones so I had a t-shirt that had accept, understand, and embrace.
Yeah.
Because for me, they were the stages I went through. I had to accept I was struggling. I then had to understand what was happening to me, what I was going through. And then I just had to embrace that was part of me.
Yeah.
And I thought something so simple, you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to any aspect of life. I thought that was quite a basic design. There was one that was, you are more than your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And be completely you. They were the ones that were the first original designs.
Yeah. So they all started off with kind of without putting any of the humor or without putting any of the kind of darker side of things into there. I mean, that
yes.
except wow, Dave can't get words out today. And I'm talking about myself in third person already. Cool. It's all downhill from here. Accept, understand, embrace. There we go. I got 3 whole words out. I'm so proud of myself right now. I mean, that is. I get that totally, and especially I love the fact that you say, you know, you can definitely apply that to different areas as well. Like we talked about with one of our community, Clyde, who's now actually is now called the Neurodivergent Ninja online now, and he basically talked about, because we have Autism Acceptance Month, and he was like, you know, it's not about acceptance. It was originally autism awareness, and then it became autism acceptance. And yeah, like we were talking about, it was more about autism celebration. You know, it's like I think I always say that the Pride community, that's the big thing that we should all learn from the Pride community, is it's not just, they don't just say, this is a part of me, accept it. They go, this is a part of me, and I'm going to celebrate the crap out of it. You know, and I love that. Like, and I think that the mental health community, you know, we could learn a lot from that as well. So yeah, embracing, I think, yeah, it's definitely a lot of mileage to be got from people learning to embrace the fact that you said earlier, like, it's just not that we're weird, it's not that we're wrong, it's just that we're different. So when did it move from that into kind of some slightly more tongue-in-cheek or a little bit more like risky?
It took me a while. I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I was scared to bring out the dark humour. Mm-hmm. I have friends that struggle with their mental health, and when I would say I'll have this design, they'd absolutely love it. But inside I'd be like, are other people ready for this? Is the world ready for my dark humour?
Yeah.
And it was Kirsty that turned around going, why'd you care? If you like it, you make it. And that's where the Christmas Christmas sweatshirt came from.
Yeah.
I decided I was going to make it for me. And then I got so much good feedback from it. It then became part of the collection.
Yeah. So for anyone who, well, you've not got it on camera right now, but for everyone watching now, and for anyone listening not on video, the Christmas hoodie is, or the Christmas jumper is a skull with a hat on that says, "When you're dead inside but jolly AF," I believe. Dead inside but jolly AF. Yes. No, there's no hat on it. I thought why in my head there was that skull was definitely
Christmas Santa hat.
Not that I was totally prepared for. I was totally prepared for it with like Jack Skellington and a Santa hat over here. But 1 second, I've just pulled my headphones out whilst trying to retrieve that from the floor, so I can't hear you. So what was the response with that then?
I didn't get one negative comment, I'm not going to lie.
You didn't?
Everyone loved... Oh, sorry, I got one negative comment. It wasn't really a negative comment. It was a not understanding comment, and that was from my dad. He was like, so basically you're saying you feel nothing. I was like, well, in a way, yeah. So, yeah, he questioned me saying, who's going to buy that? And I went, well, actually, I've had orders for it. So, a few people.
Yeah, I mean, that's like anyone who likes The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like that's like you like spooky stuff and you like Christmas at the same time, and you like a darker side of it. But yeah, so when I am surprised that was it. Like, I mean, to be honest, in terms of the kickback, but I'm not surprised that a lot of people did like it though, because that's the kind of beauty of when you do things like that, is you find that there's a group of people that are like, oh my God, I wish someone else had said it like this, or I wish someone else had said it this, or that is exact. Because if you find something that's not really been done or not really been catered for, it basically either means it really needs to be, or someone tried it and found out the hard way that it should be left alone. And it is a little bit of a gamble, but yeah, I think that you'll find that there are a lot of people out there that kind of just, they're like, okay, yeah, I wish there was a lot more of this. I wish that we could talk about this. To you, so I obviously said you made it for you to start off with. How would you define feeling dead inside but also jolly AF?
Exhausting. to sum up in a word, definitely exhausting. It's just, especially around Christmas, you're going to have your ups and downs, but there's more pressure to feel up than down around Christmas.
Yeah.
Everyone tells you to be, oh, it's Christmas, get in the spirit, get all jolly, get merry, and it's like, I don't feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
That's where it kind of came from. I was just like, yeah, well, sometimes I feel like I'm dead inside, but I'm trying to get in the spirit. This is me getting in the spirit wearing my Christmas jumper. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, yeah, it's because the reason I was going to ask is that I was going to play, devil's advocate for your dad for a second and be like, because to a lot of people, the reason I want to dig with this a little bit is that they seem like two contradicting feelings. It's like dead inside means you feel nothing. Whereas jolly AF obviously means that, you're in the Christmas spirit. It's like, how can these two things coexist? And I think, like, I mean, I have bipolar disorder, so I know how two emotions can coexist. It's hilariously fun. It's not. It's terrible. Wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But it's like, to anyone on the outside, it's like, okay, if either you feel nothing or you feel everything, surely you can't feel nothing and feel everything. But I think the thing is that when you do struggle with your mental health, you can be surprised by what you feel. Like, you expect to, you can't have too many expectations on your feelings. Like, that's the thing, is the pressure of other people having the expectations of you to feel jolly at Christmas. It's like, forced jolliness is just, it's not a very nice feeling. It's like, but you can be totally and utterly surprised that something comes along and makes you like feel the feels, and like and you get suddenly, you know, wrapped up in it. It might be a bloody John Lewis Christmas advert, you know, they're literally designed to make people feel the feels. But yeah, I think that's another big. We talked about this on the show last week, was the fact that for people with mental health, we often get told to feel what we're not feeling. We often get told, cheer up, you know, put on a happy face and stuff, and
get over it and all that.
yeah, exactly. And Christmas is possibly like a mini nuclear reactor of that. You know, it's like you're going to get told that more than. You're going to get told that more around that time of year. And the thing I find is that is actually, it's hard, forced, when people try and force me to feel a certain way, there's almost like an internal resistance that pushes back more and makes me feel worse. Whereas actually, if people just get out the way to let me feel what I want to feel, it actually creates the space for some of those feelings to come up. Like I can, you know, feel happy about something. I can feel excited about something. I can feel. It's sometimes like why I'd probably like rather go and what if I wanted to get festive, for example, I would probably watch a Christmas movie on my own rather than with other people around, simply because I don't want them looking to see whether I'm reacting to the movie or not yet. Like,
yes.
Like I know this isn't a festive movie in the slightest, but I went to see the new Black Panther movie like on my own a few like just the day it came out actually, and I just sat there and cried for like 2.5 hours, and I loved it because I wasn't like having to like. I wasn't like checking to see if the people that were with me were watching whether I was crying. I wasn't checking to see if they were crying at the same bits as I was crying at. It was just me, my emotions, that movie, allowed to happen. And I think that's it. Like, it's creating space for people to feel whatever they want to feel or whatever is right for them to feel at that time, rather than telling them they have to feel a certain way.
Yeah, no, telling someone to feel something personally makes me feel the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me to feel happy. The pressure of trying to feel happy makes me worse. And I'm definitely one for... I can't sit and cry in front of a group of people. I'm very much like you said, just hold it, like looking around going, oh, is someone going to judge me for crying at this part? Dog dies in a film, I'm in tears. I don't care who's around, I'm in tears.
Yeah.
But generally watching films, it's like, oh, that hit me in the feels. It's like, no one else is getting upset. Don't cry. But I watch on my own, I'll be in tears.
Yeah.
You just safe space being on your own. And I'm definitely one for allowing yourself to feel whatever feeling you're feeling without fear of judgment. And that's the safe space I want people to feel like they have with me. It's getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's I suppose acceptance and embracing of the emotion that is there, and you know, we have a little sort of saying over in ours, which is appropriate vibes only, because we got kind of sick and tired of everyone saying positive vibes only. And appropriate vibes only for us means whatever you're feeling. If something's angered you today and you're angry, that's appropriate. If something's made you sad today and you're sad, that's appropriate. And that, you know, so we've kind of embraced that in our community for, well, as long as we've been around, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. I don't like the whole forced positivity all the time, 24/7. It's no.
I, unfortunately, as well, I think that forced positivity has been has had the most negative impact on positivity as anything. So, like, once positivity becomes forced, it then created the concept of toxic positivity, and then basically that created a thing where everyone who thought that, okay, well, now let's put all positivity over into this toxic positivity and we'll leave that away. And positivity 100% has a place. That place is just not 100% at the time. And I think actually by trying to be, let's say, and I mean, this is going to be ridiculous statistics. Let's just say for a second that the world was 90% positive. It isn't, spoiler alert. But if it was, and then someone came along and was like, right, well, this 90%, how can we make that better? I know, let's make it so you're only allowed to be positive 100% of the time. And then I honestly think that push right there caused more damage than it. Like I feel like it was there with the right intentions to start off with. It was like, yeah, we think that, so it'll have been by someone who's gone through their own little journey or big journey, like, and then they'll come out of it the other side of it, and they've now spun around what they're thinking about things, and they're thinking more positively, and they'll be like, oh my god, this saved my life. I know, I'm totally speaking from experience here. I was very toxically positive like 7 years ago, and then it's like, right, I want everybody else to do this now, and honestly, usually it takes that person to like find out what happens one day when their forced positivity doesn't work, in order for them to go, oh shit, this doesn't work 100% of the time, you know. And it's a tough one to get through. For yourself, looking back to kind of, you said like, you know, what, like that you needed to hear this, and you need to, like, what other things did you need to hear back then? What are some things that if you could go back and tell slightly younger you, like, what would be the things? And then write all these down, because these will be t-shirt ideas.
They all sound like cliches, but at the darkest point, I didn't see a way out. But just pushing through that, just that little bit more, I got through it. Mm-hmm. So it sounds, just keep going. It sounds cliche saying like it gets better. I wouldn't say it gets better. You just learn what you can and can't handle. Just allow whatever it is you're feeling, but don't force a smile. If you're sad, be sad. Yeah. I know when you're out in front of people, you won't necessarily want to feel like you're being a negative Nancy or whatever it is that people get referred to these days, but being honest about yourself. If I was honest about my feelings at the time when I first started to struggle, my friends who also were struggling, that I didn't know were struggling, we probably all could have helped each other. Yeah. Just by not pretending that everything was okay. So my advice to younger me would definitely be just keep going and just be honest with how you're feeling. You might not understand it, but you don't have to understand it to allow that feeling to just be. Just let it be you for an hour, a week, a month. Just allow it to just sit with you until you're ready to, okay, what's next? Yeah. That's definitely something I wish I knew back when I was 14.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I ended up on a huge rant like last week because in the streaming space, it's a very cliched thing to talk about your problem. Not cliched thing. It's a very dangerous thing to talk about your problems, because you'll actually find a community like mine where it's like, sweet, come on, talk about my community has one rule about talking about your problems: don't go into graphic detail. That's it. Like, so, and that's it. So we don't call it trauma dumping, because that's just like, I hate that phrase. But the thing is, I really feel we've got to a point now where people are getting much better at actually opening up about things. And the weird thing was, I think I had a weird privilege about this when it was like 4 or 5 years ago when I first started opening up about my stuff, because it was kind of like, oh, not many men are doing this. Therefore, when I did it, people were like, oh my God, a man's actually opening up about this. You're so brave. You're so amazing. So like, I never really got bad responses back so much then. I got negative responses as a teenager when I opened up about it, and then clammed up for like 20 years. But when I finally started opening up about it in my 30s, I didn't get negative responses. So, and I think basically people are getting better at opening up. I think one big change we need right now is that society needs to get better at being prepared to accept when you ask how someone is, that the answer might be, I'm pretty shit, or I'm not doing too well. Or if you're not prepared for the person to say anything other than, yeah, not bad, thanks, how are you? If you're not prepared for them to say anything other than that, maybe don't ask that question. Like, it's like let's get to a position where when we ask that question, we actually care. Like,
Yeah, it's not just a general passing conversation like, you okay?
Yeah,
I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And automatic responses as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think were you familiar with the Just Ask Twice movement, like about 4 years ago? So I think it was. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Mental Health England or Public Health England or whoever it was. They had it on beer mats. I remember that. It was it was you ask someone how they are, and then when they say, yeah, I'm fine, thanks, you say, how are you really? You ask like a second time. Because we're all so programmed to answer, yeah, I'm fine, thanks, how are you? Like, and we've probably all had that. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Like, it's like, when are we going to stop this? But yeah, there is a lot of there is a lot of power in opening up, and more often than not, you do find that the other person's like, oh my god, actually, I'm struggling with some of this stuff too. Thank you for talking about it. And as you said before, you might find that you're able to help each other out, or you're able to point each other in the right direction. So when I do message you about like what should I put the topic as, because the topic has to be like in like 3 words for the sake of a bloody YouTube banner, and you said life but unfiltered. Now what does that mean to you?
So obviously my brand's name is Life Just Filterless, and it's also coincidentally my initials, but I want people to live life without having to filter it. So I don't want people to put smiles on their faces just for the sake of putting a smile on their face. I want them to be able to say, I feel like shit. I want them to feel like saying, no, I'm not doing too good. No, I'm on the verge of a breakdown. I don't want people to put a filter on. I want them, whether it's physical filter, as in a smile, or what they're saying to people. Like you said, when people ask, oh, you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I want people to have that filterless life where they can just go, no, I'm not okay. I need someone to talk to. And not be fearing the response of, oh, we'll go and speak to such a body, I don't care. Or, oh, you'll be fine, get over it.
Yeah.
I want people to embrace what they're going through and not be scared by putting a filter on basically their life. There's a lot of social media stuff where people only post the happy times, the good times, oh, look at us on holiday. You wouldn't know an hour ago we were in tears, having an argument, having a fight. People then look on social and think, oh my God, look at them, they're so happy.
Yeah.
You don't know that behind that door, they're not. It's like there's a few people I follow where they'll post Instagram-worthy photos,
mm-hmm.
and then you scroll and they've got belly rolls and hair and things like that. I want people to not basically live in a social media life. Be true, be real, just be you. It's hard, but I think the more people that do it, the safer more people will feel about it.
Yeah, definitely. I was just, when you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, even for a while, and it's definitely still there, hashtag no filter, is that you want it to get to a point where it's kind of like normalized to not use a filter, or it's normalized to have belly rolls, or or hair. And I was just thinking, like, of all the, and this phrase makes me nearly throw up every single time, influencers, despite the fact that I totally consider myself one. Someone's just walked over my grave. But those things are actually often used as a promotion themselves. So it's like, okay, it's not just I've taken this photo and I've put myself up, and I'm sat hunched over so my belly rolls are on show. It's done in a way where it's like, here's my perfect photo and here's my natural photo. And I understand why that's done as well, because that's often done to show people this is what actually people are doing in order to look better, for want of a better word. But at the same time, people are then using, like the body positivity movement, which I was totally and utterly on board with, did similar things to kind of like what other movements did, which is, well, actually, this is good. This is popular right now, so therefore, I'm kind of, I feel empowered to do this, not because I feel empowered to do this, but I feel empowered to do this because I'm going to get a lot of praise for it on social media. And like, yeah, again, same. I want it to be normalized in the fact that like, I don't want for when a man comes out and talks about his mental health for them to be treated how I was 5 years ago, mainly because I want that reserved for me. No, I'm joking. But I don't want it like, I don't want what I do for work to be treated as being like this weird and spectacular thing because it's unusual that someone speaks about these things or hosts these unfiltered conversations about these things. I want that to be normal. Like I like, and therefore, like I want it to kind of like fade into, I don't know, not obscurity exactly, but I want like the idea of a normalized conversation isn't that okay. It's still weird for people to hear this. You know, a normalized conversation is actually we talk about this as readily as we talk about football or we talk about Christmas or we talk about movies. It's all that stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think especially with men, it's probably more accepted amongst women with mental health than it is men. I hate the whole man up thing. Yeah. I absolutely hate it. Absolutely, it just boils me up inside. And I was raised to believe crying was weakness. Mm-hmm. And having that drilled into me at such a young age didn't help when I was struggling. But I'm now, my son's now 6. And whenever he cries, I don't tell him to stop. I just let him cry. If he feels he wants to cry, the fact that he's spilled juice on his pants, I let him know now he can cry. He's safe to cry.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that men have to feel they have to be manly by not crying.
Yeah.
It's a pet peeve.
It's a bit of a pet peeve as well of mine. It's funny because one of my friends actually tried to reclaim the phrase. He runs a podcast called Just Man Up, and the problem is everyone who knows him. This is a kind of like a similar thing to kind of if someone knows your brand and gets it, it's all okay. But like you're more likely to get people on the outside that are like, what the hell? Now everyone who knows him knows that what he's trying to do is take back that term and redefine what it means to man up. Like for him, to man up is to open up, and that's kind of how he'd sign off every single one of his podcasts. But whenever he's a guest on other people's shows, he has to then 20 minutes of the episode is like explaining the name, and especially like when he's been on mine and we've got a live audience. If they're in like a feisty mood that day, it's like, and it gets slightly worse if someone asks him to explain it in the first 20 minutes and then someone new kind of comes in like 40 minutes later, and it's like we dealt with that. Go back and listen to the beginning, yeah, it's such a horrendous phrase, and it teaches people, oh well, in order to be a man, you need to be a certain thing, and like the vast majority of men don't actually agree with that. And the ones that, and then a portion of the ones that do agree with it because they think they're supposed to agree with it, and they've never been given any sort of like any alternative options. You know, it's like what does it actually even mean? It's a terrible phrase and needs to be got in the bin.
Yes, definitely down the bin. Ripped up, shredded, burned, and just destroyed.
So since you've been releasing the stuff, like obviously you said the oh my God, words, Dave. I will be getting more Beechams down me in about 20 minutes. You said the response, like, you know, again, particularly on the Christmas t-shirt, like has been really good. Has it opened up some more conversations with like you and your friends, or has it had people reach out to you on social media and start conversations that way?
Yeah, quite a lot of people that have bought from me are people that I know and I've already had conversations with over the last like decade about their struggles. There's been the odd one where I've just got random messages into my inbox saying like, thank you for sharing that. I know there was a video that my boyfriend found when he first went on my social media, and I think it was about anxiety. And even he, before we started dating, even said, "Oh my God, I relate." Mm-hmm. So having people that don't really know you say these things, even though I don't do it for the comments, the reactions, just knowing it's working, people are feeling comfortable enough to feel this way. It's just amazing. Just having people know they can talk to me. I've still got people from when I first started last year that still every now and again will message me and just say, "Hey, I'm not doing too great. Can I talk to you?" And it's just nice knowing that they feel safe to talk.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the majority of people that do that, I would probably say it's more men than women that will reach out to me to say, "Oh, thanks for sharing. I needed that." Which, for me, getting men to accept, bonus for me.
Yeah. So you said a minute ago, like, that's not why you do it. Why do you do it?
So that no one feels how I felt. Like, looking back to how I felt at 14 till 21 was when I actually started to seek help. Mm-hmm. For those years. Looking back, I don't want anyone, 14-year-old or 36-year-old or 78-year-old, I don't want anyone to feel the way I felt. And if I can just stop one person feeling like that, for me, that's all it takes. Just one person.
Yeah. So do you have any kind of goals with that, or do you have any kind of like projects outside of the, like, anything else that, I mean, I know a lot of times when someone's working with a brand, it's like, yeah, I've got ideas, but you know, some of them are like they're in a vault over here for now. Is there any kind of like projects or something that, like, you know, as well, let's put that, I'll be cheesy with it, as you are my last guest of 2022. Like, are there anything, like, things that you would like to achieve with it in 2023?
Yes, there are. There's a lot of things I want to achieve. My end goal for the brand is I want to be trained in becoming like a therapist, so that I can offer people affordable therapy. I went on the NHS waitlist 3, maybe even 4 years ago. I'm still on that waiting list. And I thankfully had my parents who would pay for my private therapy.
Right.
But when you find out it's like £80 for an hour, it puts people off going. For me, it was the best thing I ever did for my mental health. Absolutely amazing thing. I think I was in it for over a year. But offering people affordable therapy is definitely my end goal. People can afford it, more people will do it, more people will feel better about their mental health. More people can then help other people with their mental health. That for me is my end goal of the brand.
Yeah. So is that, you said obviously training as a therapist yourself, but would that be kind of like you'd be using the fashion brand to subsidize the income there, or would that be or would it be you'd be using that to even subsidize other therapists at all?
It would be to originally pay for the course I'd have to obviously take to be qualified.
Yeah.
It would then help with the cost of the building, the room, wherever I end up having the physical space. And ideally, in an ideal world, I'd want a space that's like a youth centre type space.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to come in for a session. You can just come in and feel safe. You can go into a little room. You can sit on a beanbag. You can do some colouring in, whatever helps you with your mental health. I want it to be in one place so that people can just pass by and think, I'm just going to go in there for 10 minutes and just be me, and then I'll carry on with my day.
Yeah.
That would be my ultimate dream come true, knowing that people are coming in, focusing on their mental health, and then can leave feeling happier.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I was going to say there's someone I'd recommend to check out called Richard Nichols if you're not already familiar with him. He's a therapist from the UK, from the Midlands. Got a very fun voice. He's very chirpy. I'll be honest. He's very chirpy. But basically he has two versions of his podcast. He has the free one, which is out once a month, and then he has one that he puts out over Patreon, which is like once a week. And basically he uses the Patreon side of things to fund for low income therapy, basically. So, and for not just with, I'm not sure if actually any of them are with him. I think some of them might be, but he funds it across, like, with this collective of therapists that will all do stuff for people on a sliding scale. And one of the things that he's talked about a lot, is, which I think is really quite important to know, is that therapy needs to be affordable rather than free. And there's this really weird thing where, like, even if it's like £1 for a therapy session, there's this weird thing where if a person has put something into it as an investment, they actually get more out of the therapy. So, like, completely free therapy, it's like, it has been shown to be kind of like, people do, like, whether they intentionally do it or whether it's an unconscious thing that they just, they take it for granted, or it's free. It's like they don't engage with it as much because they don't feel as invested in it. And it's one of the weirdest things, because I got into all of this for, if I can just help X amount of people by having, we have a free space that people can come in, they can talk about whatever's going on and all that stuff in a completely non-judgmental space. And I, for my first year of when I became a coach, well, the first 3 years, actually, I actually gave out a free session every single day for 3 years. And some of that went really, really, really fantastic and did well. But a lot of times people did just kind of like take it for granted. And I was like, it's, when you want to change the world, you think to yourself, well, what can I give for this? And sometimes it's about, like, finding that kind of sweet spot with it, really. So Richard Nichols is a really cool guy to check out for that, because he talks about it quite a bit. So I was going to say a few people that actually came from that have just mentioned it was called A Life a Day, and a few people in chat have just said that they met me through that. So I have to say it wasn't. It definitely. Well, I actually think it was. I always say that I got more out of it than the 1,000 people that I spoke to, because I got 1,000 hours of training, of practice, like, without me thinking. Without the little, because I had a lot of imposter syndrome going on back then, and, like, my brain saying, who are you to be trying to help people and all of that stuff. So I got 1,000 hours of going, well, I mean, at the end of the hour, they've only lost an hour of their life if they speak to me and I'm rubbish. So it went quite okay. Is there anyone else kind of, like, out there doing mental health stuff that inspires you?
See, I love what the charity Mind does. Mm-hmm. I love how they put it out there. There are a few accounts that I do follow on Instagram. I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but they post things about, like, I think they mainly post quotes or things saying, like, it's okay to feel the way you do.
Yeah. Just
simple, to the point things, and it's just like, yeah, I do feel like that. I absolutely love Kirsty and what she does. because she's very real as well. I just love anyone that's real on social media, because the more people that seem to talk about the struggles, the downs, I'm not feeling up to it today, the more I like them.
Yeah.
There's no one person, because some people post it about one day, someone doesn't the next. Like my friend Rachel, she posts a lot of inspirational quotes, but then she'll post that she's not having a good mental health day.
Yeah.
So she's very much, she'll show when she's positive, she'll show when she's down. She's not afraid to be real. Yeah, I'm not saying she'll literally dish out everything saying, I feel like this or I feel like that. She'll just say, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to slob around in my pajamas, watch a film, and then next day she's back to posting her positive quotes because she's done what she needed to.
Yeah. No.
So there isn't really a one or a few accounts. It's just generically anyone that's posts about it, not necessarily like I do, where it's just mental health, but people that can dibble and dabble and be honest daily, weekly, monthly.
Yeah.
I like to keep an eye on them.
I was going to say, I think what you said there about your friend Rachel, though, speaks back to a theme that's already come up a few times, which is just letting people feel what they need to feel at a time. You know, it's like her having that PJ day and whatnot might be something that helps her to only need a day off rather than a week off. Sometimes we fight so hard to, going back to the whole 90% positive to 100% positive, we fight so hard for that top 10% that we lose another 30 or we lose another 40. And I know so many people that, you know, fight their asses off to stay in work when they're not feeling right, or to keep on pushing through with when their mental health's already really taxing them. And because of guilt, because of thinking that, well, if I take the time off, what will happen? I'll let people down. I've definitely felt that myself in the past. And it's and then you hit full burnout. You know, it's like, and it's I quote from Kung Fu Panda for this one, which is probably stolen from like Confucianism or something. But the phrase is, often you meet your destiny on the path you choose to avoid it. And like sometimes, like, you know, you're trying to avoid taking time off, you're trying to avoid being seen as lazy or people finding out about your mental health or whatever, and you cover it all up and mask it for so long that it burns you out even further. And then, well, again, I'll just throw myself under the bus again, because I know what it's like to have a meltdown. Like, and my reaction then, I'm scared to tell someone, oh, my mental health's not too good today, I think I need a bit of time off. And instead of holding that in, if I hold that in for too long, it becomes like a screaming, shouting, I can't form my sentences correctly, you know, and then you get scapegoated. It's like, well, you know, he's so hysterical. He's so like, it's having those days proactively kind of saying, you know what, I can tell that I'm not quite feeling right today, so I'm gonna dial things back a little bit. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space. And if I give myself a little bit of space now, I might not need like a full 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, whatever it might be, further down the line. What was the question? Oh yeah, okay, good. It came back. I love it when they come back. Every now and then I have questions halfway through someone else's answer, and then I forget it by the time I get to the weekend. What areas of mental health do you think aren't being talked about enough?
I'd probably say you hear a lot of the anxiety and the depression. You hear a lot of the most common ones. But I don't think suicide and self-harm are spoken about enough. People think self-harm is a blade to the wrist. It's so many different forms of self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
I used to use alcohol and binge drink to the point where I'd black out.
Yeah.
That was my version of self-harm. I have a thing where I still do it now. I'll scratch my hand to the point where I cause a blister because I'm anxious. That can be seen as a form of self-harm. I clench my fist to the point where I cause indentations in my palm. It's an automatic reflex, but I think people need to know what self-harm is.
Yeah.
Just because someone's not got slash marks on the wrist doesn't mean they're not self-harming.
Yeah.
Suicide, I think, probably more warning signs. You hear a lot of kids that are getting bullied online, taking their own lives at 14. There should be somewhere that someone can see a sign. I'm not saying everyone will have the same sign as they're going to go and end their life.
Yep.
Everyone's different, but there should be some sort of conversation had about suicide. I think it should be, personally, I think mental health should be spoken about in schools at a young age, and knowing that it sounds morbid to talk to a 6-year-old about their mental health, but teachers are trained in kids' mental health to know the signs. So why can't kids be taught the signs themselves that they're not feeling themselves? I just think it just needs general learning. Kids' mental health, suicide, and just self-harm. It's not what you would stereotypically expect it to be.
Yeah. It's I was going to say, I don't know if you know what I do from my day job, but my day job is working for the NHS for a little subsidiary of the Lancashire and South Cumbria NHS called Change Talks. And I know from your accent that you're around here somewhere. Like, I'm talking like maybe more east, but I,
Manchester.
Yeah, I thought as much. So we don't do great in Manchester, but for Lancashire and South Cumbria, we've been teaching it in schools for 3-ish years now to secondary school, and we've just launched like a primary school version of it, like in November. So I teach the secondary school ones, and my colleague Naomi teaches the primary school ones, and she's just started doing that for the first time now. And yeah, suicide's something we've always talked about on that program, but we've got the self-harm topic going in. When have I got it? Next week, the week after. So when everyone goes back to school, so I'm going to be talking about self-harm in schools from January. But there's one of the most interesting things when it comes to that. So one of the ones that we already talk about is eating disorders, and the issue with that is it's I am obviously fighting for people to do this in schools because it's what I do, but the people who need to hear it the most are the ones that will walk out, and like they will like, this is too triggering, I'm leaving. And we're doing it in a tremendously careful way as well, but still it's like, a lot of times it's like you have to kind of like plant the seed that the teacher that you're working with here, you might not talk to them about it today, but that's the seed we're trying to plant, is that this teacher is someone who is safe for you to talk about this to when you are ready. And it is one of the hardest parts about mental health right now, is because obviously like is talking about the suicide and self-harm are slightly different. I mean, in the fact that with suicide, just talking about it doesn't tend to actually lead a person to go and attempt it. Talking about methods does. So like people have to be like really careful with that. And the same with that, when you said before about the other forms of self-harm. So so again, with this program that we've put together, we've had to say that self-harm isn't just cutting. It's not just that. And we inform the teachers about other forms of self-harm, but we don't directly inform the students about it, because basically the research shows that if you inform people about different types of self-harm, they go and try them. And also there's a really uncomfortable thing with self-harm, is the fact that no one wants to, because no one wants to admit that they do any part of their mental health self-care, because self-harm is a coping strategy at the end of the day, but it's one of the odd coping strategies that people will do from a peer pressure point of view as well. So and the problem with it is it does generally make a person feel something. So they might do it for the first time, not because they want the effect that it's supposed to have for them, but they might do it to fit in or to appear cool, and then it, generally they do it once, and then it's like, I'm kind of a little bit hooked on this now. So that
was how I started. I started because I saw my friends were doing it.
Yeah.
Tried it and was like, actually, this stops me thinking. The way I described it to my mum when my mum found out I was doing it was, it gives me, I've got emotional pain I don't know how to process.
Yep.
Having something that's physically hurting me, I can feel that and I know what that is.
Yep.
So it gave me something real to focus on. Yep. And then that was it then for me. Started it because my friends did, and then carried it on.
I started it because someone told me that was what it'd do. And then was hooked on it for quite a while. And because I was like, I didn't know that it was supposed to be for that reason. I remember wanting to when I was a teenager, and I was just the world's most, I was just terrified of blood. So I didn't. So I again, through different reasons, I went through the whole binge eating. I went through binge drinking. I went through taking far too many drugs. I was self-harming through other ways. And it was only a year before, everyone on my podcast knows that, in 2009, I made an attempt on my own life, and it was in the year building up to that none of the other forms of self-harm, i.e. food, alcohol, drugs, were doing it for me anymore. And that's the problem it's a very difficult thing to talk about, because you need to make sure that the person you're talking about isn't going to be, you basically need to make sure that you're not making anybody worse by what you're doing. Like, the whole point of doing any of these mental health talks is to let people know that they're not alone, to let people know that there are resources out there to help them to get out of these things, to let them know that if you actually do find yourself in a position where you are self-harming and you feel like you're dependent on it, that you're definitely not alone in that as well, because most people that I know who self-harmed felt dependent on self-harm for the time that they were doing it, and then still for a time afterwards. But it's something that I call a boomerang, which is, it might make you feel good in the short term, which is the boomerang going forward, but it's going to come whipping back and it's going to hurt you even more. I remember feeling tremendously kind of guilty after that initial feeling of physical pain taking away the mental pain for a second. It only took the mental pain away for a little bit. The mental pain came back, and now there's guilt on top of it. There's remorse. There's covering up my arms and stuff and making sure people don't see, and feeling secretive about it and all the rest of that. And it is
wearing jumpers in summer just so no one asks questions.
Yeah, basically. And I'm a big guy. I don't need anything else to make me warm. But yeah, those things that I 100% agree with you, is the fact that those things definitely need to be talked about more. And I think I don't know what the answer is in terms of social media, because social media pushes a lot of those topics back in the algorithm, because unfortunately there are people that talk about those things irresponsibly. There are people that talk about self-harm and suicide in a promoting it kind of way. Same with an eating disorder communities. An eating disorder community you might think is the best place for someone with an eating disorder to go and spend some time, but actually sometimes they can be they can be communities that actually encourage the person further into their eating disorder. But the problem is, because those groups exist, when people talk about things in a better and more productive way, often those groups are kind of treated in the same way. So it's let's push this back to the let's mute things that have got the mental health hashtag on them. Let's kind of, anything that talks about self-harm, let's take that off people's timelines, even if it's talking about it in a here are steps to get away from it. It's unfortunate that I think a lot of the positive content gets treated as being potentially harmful. Yeah. The
information that's out there, for some kids might read into it and go, oh, I didn't know that one, I'll try that one. Rather than seeing it as someone's come through that and how they got through it by using a non-damaging form of coping.
Yeah.
They'll just see that as, oh, well, you're giving this person ideas on what they can do.
Yeah.
Rather than the healthy way that they dealt with it.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, one of the the actual government approved ways of starting a conversation around self-care is teaching people how to do it safely, and like that is quite massively controversial with the parents that are the schools that we do, because people like, you're teaching my child, and personally I'm not, I don't do it. Like we outsource to is it Butterfly and Phoenix Project? I think it might be. We outsource to charities that have done actual endless research in the fact that it is, and the basic version of it is better for if someone is going to self-harm, it is better that they know how to do it safely than them not. It's like, knowing how to do it safely is not going to make them do it more. It's just going to mean that when they do it, they're not getting infections, or they're not getting, bleeding out. And but the funny thing is that like parents generally just like, I just want my child to stop it. And it's like, okay, so I also want your child to stop it. I actually want nobody in the world to do this. It's just no one really agrees on the way to make that a reality. It's tough. Where can people find more about you and the brand?
So at the minute, I have my Facebook account that's my personal account, so I don't tend to promote much on there.
Okay.
But on Instagram, it's at ljf.official. That's the tag. On there, you'll find my kind of humour, my raw, just this is who I am. Sounds bad, don't like it, then you're not for me either. It's I've kind of learned that. And then my website's just www.lifejustfilterless.co.uk, and that's where you can find all the t-shirts, hoodies. I have journals, starting to do key rings. I've got prints that are coming out as well. So yeah, very exciting time coming for 2023. Lots and lots of stuff.
I now feel a little bit silly because I totally, when obviously you gave me the caption of Life Just Filterless for the topic, I'm like, I totally didn't put the LJF together. And then because a new name was Lisa Jayne and I didn't see the Life Just Filterless on the Instagram, I'm just like, I just thought, you said it just happens to coincidentally be your initials. And I'm like, yeah, I just thought it was your initials.
It's my dad's idea. Because my mum could never remember. My business was originally called The No Filterless Life.
Right.
And my mum could never remember it. She's like, what is it called? So my dad went, why don't you change it to something that people remember? Have your initials. And I'm like, okay, Life Just Filterless. I'll change it. Mum's never forgotten the name since.
It's good. Is there anything else you want to add that I haven't led you in the direction of with the questions?
No, I just want people to know that it's hard. No part of dealing with mental health is easy, but you don't realise you might feel weak struggling with your mental health, but the fact that you get up every day makes you stronger than most people who don't. And I think that just needs reiterating. You're not weak. You're not different. You're just you.
Yeah.
You're stronger than most people. And I think people just need to stop putting themselves down so much, saying that, oh, I'm weak, I'm pathetic. I know I did. Now I look back and think, wow, I came through so much.
Yeah.
And I'm here now to help others do the same. So just stay strong, keep going. Doesn't get easier. You just learn to adapt.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I apologise if I've been a bit rambly because my brain's just not working as fast as it does when I've not got a cold.
I ramble in general, don't worry.
But it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I look forward to seeing all these plans come to fruition. And so it was at on Instagram ljf.official. And then lifejustfilterless.com.
.co.uk.
Lifejustfilterless.co.uk. So thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Yes, thank you very much.